Howdy folks, Michael with the Reason RX podcast. Here again, 23 May 2021. Hope you are doing well. So we're still in this quarantine thing. If you're listening in the future, fun. But we'll see what happens, where things are going to go in the next few months and in the fall when the winter rolls around. All this fun, political, social, educational stuff going on, all these cultural movements, all these philosophical movements, people trying to influence the culture in different ways, stuff going on in politics. Great time to be alive. Where? Okay. Maybe not in some ways. Some ways, obviously, it's great. We got this stuff going. Podcasts, all this other great stuff. But in some ways, not. But hope you're enjoying the podcast. If you could remember, if you could give it some thumbs up, give it some likes, leave some good comments, or just thrash it. Say, they talk about reason. Reason's stupid. Who cares about reason? What does reason have to do with education? They need to talk about, like, your big toe or your feelings. Important stuff in education. You can just trash or leave comments or whatever you want to do. And spread the word. Let teachers, principals, others know about the podcast, the show, a lot of good ideas that would influence our culture for the better. And if you can support it, that would be appreciated. There's like links to PayPal and something or other in there in the show notes. But today we are going to talk to Hans Schantz about scouting. So in education, we got some principles that we must obey, but then we got different parameters that we can vary on. Every child is individual and unique and has their own needs, but they are human. So there's some things that are on principle the same for everyone, like it or not, no matter what you believe, end of story. But obviously, we have some different interests, different goals that are valid within a rational context, different careers you want to prepare for. People like different colors, different food. They wear different clothes. And there can be a different balance of individual work and group work. So we're going to talk today about some ideas we can learn to think about that. How might we do some group work in a productive way instead of it being like some, as people know, a lot of group work, one person ends up doing all the work, the others just tag along and do nothing, just kind of like jump on the train, parasite on the other person, get an A from someone else's work. That's not really going to cut it in a company. We need everyone doing the best they can to make the best product, bring a lot of good thinking into play. So it'd be good to learn how we can strive towards doing that, if not actually accomplish it. At least we can do some group work and individual work better. It'll help people have ideas, see how you can balance it, when you can do what, maybe at what age some things are appropriate. So we'll get into talking about some of that with some scouting and some Montessori today. So Hans, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Hans Schantz. I live in Huntsville, Alabama. I have been involved in scouting with my family for about 4 or 5 years now. My boys were Cub Scouts and are now Boy Scouts. My girls are Venturers, which is a kind of less structured program within scouting that emphasizes outdoor adventures and activities without all the structure that Boy Scouting provides.
And there's also, there's Scouts, Venturers, and there's also what, like Sea Scouts?
Yeah, there is Sea Scouts, which is, well, as you might imagine, a nautical-themed scouting program that works on things like sailing and water safety.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been involved in Scouts?
I've been in about 4 or 5 years. I started just bringing my boys to their Cub Scout meetings, and their den leader asked me to step up and help, and I kind of enjoyed getting involved in that side of the thing. I had some past experience in teaching. I went through a graduate program in physics where I taught physics to undergraduates, and then I spent a couple of years in education teaching electronics and math and physics at the community college level. So I've enjoyed being involved in education, and Scouting really was an opportunity to do more of the same, get involved in the curriculum and the education and the experience that my children were receiving through Scouting. So I started off as a assistant den leader and ended up being the cub master for the pack. So that meant I was in charge of the overall program for the pack, organizing pack campouts, and making sure that the individual dens were staying on track and following the curriculum. The curriculum is on the Cub Scout level is pretty structured each year. There are 4 or 5 activities that the Cub Scouts have to complete in order to earn their rank, and then a wide variety of optional activities. There are campouts, a half dozen or so campouts over the course of the year, lots of outdoor activities. The real point of Cub Scouts is that it's a game, but in the words of Lord Baden-Powell, who is the founder of Scouting, it's a game with a purpose. So it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be the kinds of things that boys like to do, but that they learn important life lessons like teamwork and character and the value of hard work and being able to work together in a team. Scouting is a lot more collective than, say, a Montessori education would be. The boys are working together usually on most of their activities. If they're working individually, it's as part of an overall group activity, like at a camp out. One boy might be in charge of cooking and another in charge of a hike. They'll divvy up the responsibilities, but they're all working together to pull off the overall program. Mm-hmm. Now, on the Cub Scout level, it's adult-led. So really, the adults are running the show. They're making the decisions. They're laying out the program and kind of letting the kids help out and participate and have fun without really having the responsibility of making it all happen. At the Boy Scout level, that switches, and it becomes a boy-led program. So the boys in the troop are the ones responsible for planning out the program and executing the program. The older boys will step up and take charge and organize the younger boys. So the more experienced boys, when they get into an activity, will be teaching and guiding the younger boys. And I think that's just a great way to educate and learn about any subject. I know in my background in physics, I never really understood a lot of the physics in my classes until it was my responsibility to have to be able to explain it, answer all the questions. You always learn more when you are called upon to teach the subject than you did when you're sitting back passively on the receiving side trying to learn from someone else. So,
and like Aristotle said, those who know do, those who understand teach, as opposed to, who was that doofus, Bernard Shaw, who said, those who can do, those who can't teach. As I said in a previous podcast, tell that to Bruce Lee. Great practitioners, teachers, are like Richard Feynman and Bruce Lee. Mm-hmm. Everyone who knows Bruce Lee knows he was quintessentially a teacher. And Feynman, he was Nobel Prize-winning physicist, great physicist, but regarded as one of the great physics teachers of the 1900s, if not the great. So
Well, it's very interesting, though, because particularly at the university level, you get a really pernicious attitude of, oh, we're not going to spoon feed them. We're going to make them learn themselves, and just kind of throw material out without making the effort to work back through the links and the connections and the process, and recapitulate the process of how you learned it so that other people can learn it.
Yeah.
And that
if that was done in junior high school or high school, then it'd be fine. Then you could throw it at college kids, say you figure it out, because they'd already know the methods. But to never teach them that and then expect them to do something they've never learned, that's like illogical, you know?
Well, there's a lot of that on the university level in my experience, and unfortunately, it's a side effect of it's basically a process of trying to turn laziness into a virtue.
Yeah.
But in scouting, nothing will get done unless the boys are doing it. Mm-hmm. So they have the incentive of, well, you want to go out camping this weekend? Well, you're going to have to get together and plan out. Where are you going to go, and what activities are you going to do, and who is going to bring the food, and who is going to cook the food, and what is going to be on the menu. And the boy who is in charge of cooking and decides, oh, I'm just going to have Pop-Tarts for breakfast, is going to hear it from his patrol mates when the other patrol is eating like scrambled eggs and bacon and having a tastier breakfast. So it's a good experience.
And so in Cub Scouts, they have dens, and in Boy Scouts, they have troops.
In Cub Scouts, the age-grouped teams of boys are called dens, and all of the dens taken together are a pack. In Boy Scouts, it's patrols, and that's why they call it the patrol method. So a patrol is a group of typically around 8 or 9 boys. Usually it's a mix of age levels and experience and skills, so that you have some older experienced scouts able to teach the younger ones. We do have, when we take in a whole bunch of new scouts, we'll initially have them in their own patrol so that they are under the guidance of actually an adult, as well as some senior scouts, getting them up to speed on how Boy Scouts works. But then after the first few months, they're distributed. That patrol gets dissolved, and they're distributed as the youngest and newest members of the other patrols. Then you'll occasionally have a patrol where it's just the Eagle Scouts who are kind of tired of hanging out with the younger kids and want to do their own thing. So we can let them do their thing and pursue more aggressive, adventuresome kinds of things that pre-teenagers might not be ready for.
And what's the age range for Cub and Boy?
The cutoff is about 10 or so. Cub Scouts, now they're actually taking kindergartners in. They have a program where kindergartners can come in and complete a really easy curriculum and do some fun outdoor activities. But it's effectively kindergarten through about 5th grade, about 10 years old, is the Cub Scout curriculum. And it's interesting how it covers the same kinds of activities and goals each year, but each year the stakes and the requirements and what you have to do get progressively more and more difficult in accordance with their age level. So, each year you're doing things like going out and doing some camping and having to study about citizenship and having to do some work on cooking and having to do, some first aid work and things like that. And then each year those requirements get more and more aggressive as they get older and more capable. So they have to live up to a higher standard.
And what's this Eagle thing you're talking about in the Boy Scouts?
Oh, that's at the tail end of the process. When you come in as a Boy Scout, the first few ranks, once you master the basics and you can say the Scout Oath and the Scout Law and the Pledge of Allegiance and have answered a bunch of basic questions about what scouting is about, you earn Scout rank. And then the next 3 ranks, Tenderfoot, Second Class, First Class, are all about mastering basic outdoor and camping skills. Things like first aid and cooking and hiking outdoors and citizenship, and there are service hour requirements and things like that. Once you're at first class, you've mastered all of the basics of scouting as a first class scout. And from then on out, the emphasis turns to merit badges. And that's kind of a fun way of doing it. There are over 100, I think 130 odd merit badges available. There's
I think there's a lot more now than there was when I was in Boy Scouts way back a few decades ago.
Yeah, well, there's a core group of about a dozen that are required. Basic things like citizenship, first aid, emergency preparedness, hiking, physical fitness. There's a core group that are required in order to be an Eagle Scout. But then, there's everything from nuclear physics to astronomy to animal science, insects, textiles, railroading, electricity, just an incredible combination of possible things you can do. And the next few ranks are, in order to move beyond first class and toward Eagle, you have to hold leadership positions within the troop. So you have to step up and be a patrol leader and be the person responsible for organizing the patrol, or be a senior patrol leader and be responsible for organizing the troop overall, or be the quartermaster for the troop, responsible for all the camping gear. So there are a bunch of leadership positions you have to hold in order to earn your rank and earn merit badges and do service hours. And the culmination of scouting is to earn the Eagle Scout rank. And in addition to all that other stuff, you have to complete some kind of project. Your Eagle Scout project has to be something that benefits your community. It cannot benefit scouting. That would be cheating. So you have to come up with some way to do something worthwhile in your community. Recently in our troop, we had one scout who pursued a veterans oral history project and recorded a whole bunch of veterans talking about their memories and nice. Recollections and services, and he cataloged all of that. That was one of the more interesting and unique ones.
Yeah, I bet.
We've had another scout who restored a howitzer that was on display at the Veterans Museum here locally. Doing trail maintenance kinds of things, like where there's a marshy spot on a trail, they'll build a boardwalk for 50-foot section of boardwalk through the trail, or put a bench, or build some picnic tables and a shelter.
Bird feeders.
Things like that. There was a conservation project some scouts did, building some duck boxes out in a swampy, marshy area, so the ducks would have some nicer habitat to be in and help enhance the duck population in our local nature preserve.
Cool.
So all kinds of interesting community, outdoor conservation-related projects that you have to complete as an Eagle Scout. It has to be something substantial enough that involves some planning, some fundraising, organizing a team to execute the project and get it done. Those are the kinds of things that they look for in an acceptable Eagle Scout project.
And then between first class and Eagle, we got Star. First class, Star, Life, and then Eagle.
Right.
So it's kind of like martial arts where you got the different belts.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. So part of it is time and rank, but a large part is you also have to have a leadership position, and you have to complete a certain number of merit badges and do some other community service, like helping other older scouts finish their Eagle Scout projects and clock up some hours that way.
Yeah, I think on the local bike trails, I hear through some of the people who take care of the bike trails, there's official groups, work with the county and all that. They don't just go do whatever they want because it's on some county land, so they got to get permission, all this. Make sure it's they're not doing anything they shouldn't. They're not taking up too much land. You got to leave some land, most of the land for the deer, things like that. But try to have no more than 20% trail and 80%, and then try to have 80% wild. But scouts, around here they'll do things like that. Build the boardwalks over some areas, as you say, and excuse me, do some other projects. And what now? They don't need swimming anymore. I think when I was, they still need it to get life and eagle. When I was young, I refused to get life or eagle because I hated swimming. And there was no way in heck I was going to get a swimming merit badge or life saving. I hated life saving.
I think you do have to pass the swimming test or have a good medical excuse not to for first class, I think. But then swimming is one of the Eagle required merit badges, but you have your choice between swimming, hiking, or cycling. So you could avoid the swimming by doing hiking or cycling instead.
Yeah, it was different at my time. So, I only did first class or star. Went to Philmont, which was awesome.
I have heard very good things about Philmont, but I am going to have to be in better shape because that sounds like it was a heck of a hike.
Yeah. You got to make sure your boots are broken in, otherwise you get blisters. Don't ask me how I know.
But those are good experiences. I talked to one of the other adults who led a group at Philmont, and the boys are in charge. So he's looking at his map and realizing they've taken the wrong way. And he looks and they've got enough water they can probably manage, even though they're not headed to the spring. And turn them loose and let them solve the problem and figure it out.
Yeah, and then in some circles, tracking, studying nature. I forgot the exact term, but that's called like the coyote method. You ask questions, you get someone to think more on their own instead of telling them the answer.
Well, one of the Eagle required merit badges that my boys were involved in, and I went and participated in it with them, was the environmental science merit badge. And they had to go and basically be a naturalist. They went out into a nature preserve and they had to find a study area and describe as much as they could about what was going on right then, right there. Then come back a few weeks later and discuss what are the differences, what's happened.
Sweet.
It was wet, marshy before because it had just rained. Now it's dried out and there's a little more growth and so forth.
Cool. That's something that needs to be more in education in general.
Well, that's good because that's forcing them to exercise their skills of observation.
Yeah, the basis of science.
And that's a key part of scouting. In fact,
cool.
Baden-Powell, two scouting stories. When Baden-Powell was in India, he was tasked to do espionage.
When was that? What years?
This would have been in probably the 1880s or so. But, he was off drawing pictures of fortifications, but he very cleverly disguised them as butterflies. So he was artistically drawing, how many guns, how many emplacements along the walls, what was the military engineering architecture of a fortification. But he did it under the guise of being a kind of silly and dim-witted butterfly fanatic who was drawing all these pictures of butterflies.
The Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yeah, very much like that. A classic.
And wait,
scouting.
one thing for folks. The Scarlet Pimpernel, well, there is a flower with that name, which I learned a few years ago is actually in my area. I didn't know what it was. The movie The Scarlet Pimpernel, oh, it's a flower. But in a plant, but it's a good movie. I recommend people watch. I'll put a link in the show notes. We'll just say that it's a good movie.
Well, there's one other story I wanted to share about on the subject of observation. There is a classic scouting game called Kim's Game, where what you do is you have a whole bunch of just random items. Usually it's camping gear if you're on an outdoor outing. And you lift you put all this, like 24 or so objects under a blanket, and you lift it up, and you give them 10 seconds to look at it, and then you close it. And you ask them to write down and describe as much of what they saw as they can remember. And usually, they're really lucky to get half or so of the items. But it's a good way to practice powers of observation and memory for being able to look at something and grasp it and understand it quickly. And then you can teach the power of teamwork by pointing out, hey, there's 4 of you here. Why don't you each focus on one quadrant of the blanket and what's in that quarter of the space? And working together, they can usually come up with a complete and accurate description of everything that was there. So it's a fun group game and activity to help build powers of observation.
Cool. Did that give you time to develop your 2 stories about how do you pronounce his name? Baden-Powell?
It's actually pronounced Powell.
Powell?
But I know I want to say Powell because it certainly looks like that to me. But my understanding is he pronounced it Powell.
Okay. So now let me see. So up until 10, and then what for Boy Scout, 10 to 18?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So we will often get boys earning their Eagle Scout rank by the time they are 16, even 15, the ones that really hit it hard and have been aggressive about pursuing it. And then, of course, there's the ones that go to the very last minute and manage to earn it just days before their 18th birthday. The scouting is very strict. Once you pass your 18th birthday, it's too late. And a lot of the requirements have timelines associated with them. Some of the merit badges, you have to track your physical fitness for 6 or 8 weeks, or track your personal finances for a certain amount of time. And if you don't get those started early enough and don't finish the process before your 18th birthday, you're out of luck.
So there are some basics of scouting. Boy Scouts, First Cub Scouts, the merit badges, the ranking, how you get the different merit badges. Did you want to talk something about like the history of Scouts?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've alluded a little bit to Scouting's founder, Robert Baden-Powell. He was a university dropout. He applied to Oxford University and didn't get in. Went to a military school instead and found that he really thrived with the outdoor environment involved in the military training. He was sent off to India, really excelled at a very young age. He was promoted to colonel and was responsible for training a lot of troops. And the troops were not all that well educated or well trained, and he came up. That's where he invented the patrol method. So where historically the military was very hierarchical, and the ranks were supposed to shut up and do what they were told. He insisted on breaking up the troops into patrols, usually led by a non-commissioned officer, and made them engage in those kinds of games and competitions with against each other that were designed to help develop their soldiering and scouting skills, their independence. And it's kind of a precursor to the sort of small unit, like special operations kinds of things that would be done in the military today, where you expect even the lowest ranks of enlisted to exercise their independent judgment, to be capable of making decisions, to meet the overall unit orders by exercising their own personal initiative to make whatever piece of it they're responsible for happen. So that's really where he developed a lot of his scouting skills and put them into practice, and had an opportunity to see how they worked and how you could train people to be better scouts. And he wrote a book, Aids to Scouting, based on that experience that became very, very popular. Well, in the Boer War, he was sent to South Africa and was ordered to take charge of a settlement called Mafeking that came under siege from the Boers. And he was able to defend it with very few troops by basically engaging in a whole bunch of clever subterfuges to try to deceive the Boers into thinking he had more troops than he actually had. He had his troops stay busy making fake guns from logs. They would pretend they were stringing barbed wire, which they didn't have, but they'd pound big visible posts into the ground and then pretend they were stringing wire. And then whenever they went through that area, they'd all make a big show of stepping over the wire that wasn't there. Made a whole bunch of fake landmines and let his men be observed building minefields, burying these fake landmines everywhere. So, and one of the things that he discovered is that the boys there were able to be very helpful. If any boy he could enlist to be a messenger or to be an observer or a lookout, well, that was one more soldier who was freed up for actually doing the fighting and being ready on the defense. So that really convinced him that boys were capable of doing a lot of the scouting activities that he had taught his troops. So when the siege was finally relieved and he came home to England as a national hero, it brought a lot of attention on him and on his book, Aids to Scouting. And a lot of boys were wanting to play soldier and play scout, and were buying his book and doing the lessons that were in it. So he decided as an experiment to take a group of boys out with a couple of adult leaders and do a couple week camp out and see how well he could teach them to be independent and to operate as a patrol. And he was just amazed at the success that he had and how far he was able to get the boys in just a couple weeks. And that inspired him to write this book here, which is Scouting for Boys. This is a new reprint of the original 1908 edition, but it's an excellent read. It has lots of great figures in it, of here are scouts building a pioneering structure. So one of the things you learn in scouts is how to take poles and lash them together and build structures out of them. And it's full of great camping and first aid and helpful information. And the modern Scout handbook descended from this book here. Well, a couple of years after Scouting took hold in the UK, there was an American businessman in London who got lost. And he was standing under a lamppost looking at his map, trying to figure out how the heck he could get back to his hotel, when this boy came and said, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" And he explained he was lost, and the boy guided him back to the hotel. And the businessman reached into his pocket and said, "Here, let me give you some money for your trouble." And the boy said, "Oh, no, I can't take a tip. I am a scout, and I have an obligation to do a good turn daily. So, no tip will be required." That so inspired him, and he was so impressed by that young scout that he came back to the U.S. and took the lead in starting Boy Scouts. Now, there had been some campcraft, usually Indian-themed boy groups in the U.S. before then, and some of the larger of them merged with Baden-Powell and his scouting organization to form Boy Scouts of America. And this is a modern copy of the original Boy Scout, U.S. Boy Scout handbook. So, scouting is in countries all over the world, but whenever you look at a scout uniform, there will be some things that are unique to each country, and then things that are common. Like this is the badge for first class scout, and you can see it has the yellow trefoil. That's the universal international symbol of the Brotherhood of Scouting. Now, this is the U.S. Boy Scout, so it has the American eagle superimposed on it to tell you that this is the Boy Scouts of America and not of anywhere else. It has 2 stars on the trefoil for truth and knowledge, and to remind us of the stars we use to guide ourselves when we're navigating at night. You can see the Scout motto below on the ribbon where it says, "Be prepared," turned up in a smile to remind us that a scout is always cheerful. And at the very bottom, there is a little tiny knot dangling down from that banner, and that knot is to remind us as scouts that we need to do a good turn daily, which is the scout slogan. So there's a lot of history and tradition associated with scouting. One of the nice things about scouting that really helps make it a resilient organization is how decentralized it is. There is a national scouting organization, but they print the scout books and run places like Philmont and national scouting camps. But all across the country, there are individual councils that are responsible for scouting in either a state or a region of the state. Like, for instance, I'm in the Greater Alabama Council, which is responsible for the northern half of Alabama. That's a separate organization, and the camps that it runs, it's responsible for and it owns. And then there's the district, and the district has its own operations. And finally, the troop. The troop, all of its property is run by its chartering organization. That's typically a church. There are some VFW or American Legion halls that will sponsor a troop. It doesn't have to be a religious organization, but a lot are. And the chartering organization really owns all of the camping gear and the physical assets of the troop. So that makes it very resilient. When the national organization was getting attacked by lawyers arguing decades-old abuse scandals, that didn't affect us locally at all. I mean, I think the national troop had to mortgage Philmont, or the national organization had to mortgage Philmont to pay off, and the bankruptcy that it had to go through. But it really doesn't affect the local groups because they're all independent organizations, which means there's no single central point of control. It's all decentralized, and that really makes it more resilient to against people trying to subvert the organization. Like we've had in recent years, there's been a change to allow girls to participate in Boy Scouts. And some troops have embraced that and have had allowed girls to join. Others haven't. I think there is certainly room for boys to have boy-only activities. I think it changes the social dynamics a bit when you let girls get included in it.
Definitely.
But different troops can do what they want. They have the freedom to maintain a traditional boy-only group, or they can have a co-ed group.
Do Girl Scouts let boys in?
I don't know if Girl Scouts let boys in, but I can't speak to that. I'm not very familiar with Girl Scouts and how they work.
Mm-hmm. Anything else in the history of Scouts?
No, I mean that's a basic outline of where it came from and how it was formed.
Mm-hmm. And so, what do you have to say about the patrol method? What could we learn from it? What kind of principles are there that people could use in different contexts other than that? School, sports, working with their kids, homeschooling, whatever.
Well, I think the key lessons from the patrol method are you learn more yourself personally when you have to teach other people. And that's one of the things that the patrol method does. It forces the older boys to teach the younger boys their skills. It's an opportunity to work together as a team. Too often people are focused on their own individual excellence, which of course is a very good thing. But one element of how you use that individual excellence and put it into effect is how well you work with other people, to cooperate with them, to create a team that is more capable than the individual members on the team. And that's really what the patrol method teaches you: how to take a group of people, how to organize it, how to be, initially how to be a good follower and contribute to the goals of the patrol, and later on how to be a good leader and how to direct the other members of the patrol toward whatever goals you're working on. So I think it really, the patrol method, not just in scouting, but you could introduce that or similar methods in any group educational activity and enhance the educational mission by providing those opportunities for doing teamwork. And you have to be careful to avoid what you were talking about earlier, the whole one person does all the work and the others just kind of goof off sort of thing. But that's also the responsibility of a good leader, to make sure everyone gets engaged.
Mm-hmm. And then with the way Scouts is set up, the merit badges and the rankings, so there's one person who might specialize in something, but there's overlap. And there needs to be, for example, if there's a military group out on a mission and there's only one person who knows first aid and that person gets hurt, well, then everyone's up a creek without an oar. Bad situation. Or if there's only one person who knows how to cook and the others don't know anything about it and they're infiltrating a country, they're undercover, no one can cook, well, they're going to go hungry. So,
well, one nice thing about scouting, at least everyone who's reached first class rank has basic competency in all those areas. They know the basics of first aid. They know how to cook. They know how to hike and camp and pack their backpack and pick a good campsite and set up a shelter. But then beyond that, people will specialize in what they're interested in, and you'll have some boys who want to do wilderness survival and learn how to go and live off the land and build a shelter from naturally occurring materials. And one of the requirements for the wilderness survival badge is you have to spend a night sleeping in a shelter that you constructed.
Only one night?
I'm sorry?
Only one night?
Only one night. They're not hardcore enough to make it more than that.
Did it used to be more? Did it used to be like a week or 2 days or something? Do you know?
I don't know. I did not get to participate in scouting as a youth for a variety of reasons, so I don't have a lot of experience or knowledge base to know how scouting used to be decades ago. You'd probably know more about it than I would.
To some extent.
One of the things I've enjoyed about scouting, though, as an adult, is the opportunity to learn all of these scouting lessons as an adult, so that I'm there available either to teach and direct Cub Scouts or serve as an advisor to Boy Scouts. So I've completed a wide variety of training. I did some wilderness first aid classes, so I'd be ready to be kind of a first responder. I mean, in most first aid classes, you're basically learning What do you do in the 5 or 10 minutes it's going to take the ambulance to arrive to make sure things don't go south any further and keep matters from getting worse. In wilderness first aid, you have to be worried about, well, how many hours away are you from the trailhead, and how can you keep someone going for a few hours and build a stretcher to take them out, it's actually a little more involved in the conventional first aid. But
yeah, hypothermia, dealing with hypothermia, dealing with someone who could possibly have a broken neck, trying to have fun learning how to do that. You got to be like super careful. It's like, God, you got to be so careful about how you roll someone over if you need to.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, wilderness first aid had a big section all about, how do you stabilize someone's neck when you're trying to roll them into a stretcher to carry them out. That's something they would never teach you in a conventional first aid class, because you have no business moving someone with a potential broken neck. You wait for the paramedics to do it.
Because that could paralyze someone for life. Yeah. But a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of great adult training that you can get as a scout leader. I went and I completed what's called the Wood Badge program. So I picked up some Wood Badge beads that I get to wear on my uniform as a scout leader. The story goes that when Baden-Powell was first starting to figure out how he was going to train Scoutmasters, he set up a training class, and Wood Badge kind of walks you through the scouting experience and forces you to work with adults in the patrol method to solve scouting and leadership challenges. And then you have to complete, after you complete the coursework, you have to go and complete kind of like an Eagle project to help your scouting unit. You have to make some kind of an impact, enhance the program, solve a bunch of goals in order to earn your Wood Badge beads. But the beads are, at least the original beads, were supposed to have come from a belt that he had taken from an African chieftain that he had defeated in battle, and he took it and started distributing the wooden beads off of it, as a mark to the leaders that they had passed the class. So that tradition is alive today too.
So what are some of the lessons what are some examples? Do you have some concrete examples from your experience about some of the help the patrol method is, some ways you've seen the patrol method help people learn about, individual kids, about education, leadership, help parents learn how to deal with students better?
Yeah, well, it's just been amazing to me. Like the last couple of scout meetings I've been to, they were doing, the boys were doing some really aggressive programs. Like last time we had an axe yard set up, and they were teaching axe and saw and hatchet work and safety. Cool. And I'm standing there kind of on pins and needles, just trying to make sure no one chops off a limb as they're doing this. But, the older boys were extremely responsible and were teaching the younger boys how to stand and how to swing the axe so that if they lose control of it, the axe isn't going to go collide with their calf or their foot.
Cool.
And it was really encouraging to see how they stepped up and handled what could have been a very dangerous situation and did so very safely and very, very professionally. I was very impressed with the maturity of the boy. I frankly they did a lot better than I thought they were going to.
Cool.
Hopefully none of them are watching this, but I was very proud of how mature they were and how responsible they were. And that's been pretty much a universal. They've they step up and they run the show. And if you get the right boys in as the senior leadership and they're working hard at it, they do an excellent job of putting on a fun program that makes scouting fun, not just for them, but for all of the other boys in the troop.
And that's a big one right there. The axe thing, learning to deal with the risk, which is pretty much eviscerated from all childhood nowadays. Not
Yeah,
with everybody, but used to be people would learn how to deal with risk. Now it's like there's no way they can learn how to deal with physical risk. So, heck, people when they're quote unquote older already have trouble and they're at risk of falling down, breaking a hip, and they can go in the hospital and then end up passing away, some of them. It's going to be even worse just with these people who are just clueless about risk. It's taken away from the playgrounds, taken away from everyday life, all this helicopter parenting. So right there, they need risk, and they're learning how they can deal with it, and how to deal with it, that they're competent, they can be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Well, and that's really a big part of scouting. It's dealing with those kinds of risks. Some of the risks are small. The guy in your patrol who's responsible for your dinner, did he actually remember to buy the food? Did you remember to check at the trailhead to be sure he brought the food? I mean, if that doesn't work, well, everyone's going to have to share and have half rations for dinner. You're down to like swimming. We did a hike into a remote canyon where there was a spring-fed pool, and the scouts went swimming in the pool. But of course, they set up and had a couple lifeguards and a couple adults backing them up to make sure they stayed safe. But that kind of an activity where you're trusting them to monitor and understand the safety and the health risks. Like most campouts, and I hadn't really appreciated this until I took the wilderness first aid class. The one piece of that medical training that came in most handy for me was heat exhaustion. Because we would have scouts, even Cub Scouts, every single campout start suffering from mild forms of heat exhaustion. Once you knew what to look for, the scout sitting there, I don't feel good, I'm whining, I want to go home. Well, have you had anything to eat? I'm not hungry. Well, why don't you drink some water? Well, I'm not thirsty. When's the last time you had anything to drink? Well, I haven't had anything to drink today. Well, aren't you a little bit thirsty? No, I'm not thirsty. Here, try this electrolyte solution. And 15 minutes later, they're up and running and playing like nothing had happened. Yeah. But and it's a good experience for them to understand their limits and understand. They should be able to self-diagnose that once they've been through it. Oh, maybe it would be a good idea for me to bring a water bottle and be keeping myself hydrated.
And then to look
things like
know what to look for in other people to help them learn to be helpful and benevolent and have a good human society. Learn that it's got to be created. It doesn't just happen. It's not there like gravity. You can create a good society, or you can create one that's not so good. They learn to recognize that. They can help themselves, help others. Right.
Well, it's actually been a little bit embarrassing. I met this woman professionally, and I started talking with her, and I realized one of her pupils was dilated, different than her other pupil. And that is a sign that someone is suffering a stroke or has some neurological damage. And so I took her aside and I said, I noticed one of your pupils is dilated. Are you feeling okay? And that could be a sign of a stroke, and maybe you should go get that checked out. It turned out she had a stroke in the past, and that was just she always had that condition, and she knew that. But I mean that you learn to look for those kinds of things so that you can be aware when someone is having health difficulties that might require some intervention.
Mm-hmm. Then in terms of risk, you got to know what you're doing. You can't just drink any water you want. You got to make sure you have clean water, have some pills, boil it, right? Unless you brought water with you. When I was at Philmont, we were hiking, and sometimes you're at a cliff that's I don't know, it's been decades, I'm not remember exactly, but it's 30 feet, 150 feet up. You're hiking on these trails, and there's a cliff right there. Or when we were in Arkansas, I think it was, one time, we went into a cave, and you got to go through these tight passages and stuff, and one person was walking along and in the cave and scared, and he slipped and he fell down. And thankfully he didn't fall really far, but he fell down screaming, thinking he was going to fall hundreds of feet, but he just fell a few feet. but 5 or something, kind of slipped down. But all that stuff where you've got to really be mindful. You can't, as most people, tune out and be mindless when they're in a mall or at home. It's like nothing to look for and nothing you got to care about. You don't have to turn on your mind and be perceptually observant. But with what they're learning, if you teach it, with what the Boy Scouts are learning in situations like that, and people who do wildlife stuff, naturalist stuff, you learn to be more observant, and then you can apply that in situations when people are around to help avoid being the victim of a crime.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Not that it's going to be a magic bullet, but one thing criminals look for is if you look them in the eye and you know them, sometimes it's over, they're not going towards you, they're gone. Once you know they're there. But as long as they think you don't know they're there, then they'll continue. There's plenty of books about it, but be observant, make sure you're walking in certain places, so you're out in the open, people can see you, you're not isolated, things like that. If people knew that, that would help.
Yeah. Well, there's a definite element of personal growth and betterment in scouting. I had one Cub Scout in particular who the first time he had an opportunity to go rappelling, he just could not go over the ledge. And the climbing instructors are very good at being extremely persuasive. They won't push you over, but they do their best to talk you into it. And he was too scared. He froze up. He would not go down that rappel. He ultimately had to come down the climbing tower, and he felt really embarrassed because a bunch of his other pack mates and den mates were there. And the next year at summer camp, I saw him go up to the climbing tower, and I was a little concerned because I remembered his past experience. He went up, and I saw him at the top, and he was clearly nervous, but he went right down over the wall and rappelled on down. And I was so proud of that young man for overcoming his fear and successfully completing that. Because I'm sure it bothered him to have refused to do that in front of his friends, and for him to go back and overcome that was really kind of heartwarming to see.
Yeah, and then in a lot of modern society, taking away that stuff right there, as you point out, is taking away room for growth. It's not always hurting someone's self-esteem. It's making them feel uncomfortable and knowing that there's something they need to work on, and they will. That's what some people do. And if some have their self-esteem all hurt about that, well, then there's more of an underlying issue that needs to be dealt with than that particular situation and like this pseudo self-esteem stuff in the culture.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got to be careful with people when you care about them, but that's a different issue than some of the direction that some aspects of the culture have gone on today. But so yeah, it's good. Like with the Scouts, they get to learn some good risk-taking, teamwork, actually having teams that are everyone's competent and everyone does something, as opposed to where are you going to get that in a classroom?
Right.
The teacher generally leads. You just shut up and follow. It's just memorization, not a lot of work. Or you got some BS groups that happen, some BS group work. But if you restructured it, homeschooling, private, public, whatever, maybe some sports, you could set it up right and develop it as the Scouts do, step by step, so that they're actually able to. Because you can't just throw them into it either. You can't say, okay, we're going to do some group work, just suddenly do this.
That's one of the advantages, at least of a mature scouting program, because you have senior boys who've been scouts for 4, 5, 6 years, and they know how to do it, and they've seen it done, and they've been to summer camp 3 or 4 times, and they can teach the younger boys exactly what to do and how to avoid whatever mistakes they may have made. So the kinds of projects that they can tackle, like you were talking about, an expedition to Philmont out in New Mexico to go hiking and camping for a week, or there's a a camp called Northern Tier up in Minnesota. You can go during the summer and do a canoe, voyageur kind of outing, or you can go in the winter and snowshoe your way through the park and camp overnight when it's 40 below zero, or down to the Keys and do scuba diving and water activities like that. So I mean, there's all kinds of very impressive, challenging projects and adventures that they get to organize and execute and benefit from in scouting.
Good. Then there's one problem with modern education, though, in trying to have everyone in a group of the same age. There needs to be some multi-age stuff too. That's one thing they have to work around to improve the system, trying to find a way to do that. So you can have more experienced people. It's not always with age, but sometimes it is. The more fundamental would be mixed expertise groups. That's what's going on with some of the scouting, and that's what needs to be done in like schools to help kids be able to teach. And plus, without so much social climbing and posturing going on, it'd be easier. It's much easier for someone 16 to teach someone 13 or 11 than someone else in the same class.
Right. With being a little older automatically gives you a certain amount of authority that you can use to establish a leadership.
Or at least an excuse. It's like, oh, he's older, it's okay. Whereas it's in the same class, same grade, same age.
Yeah.
And then that's, people say they want to educate for the way the real world is. Well, show me the company where everyone's the same age. Ha! Does not exist. That's not getting people ready for the real world. That's like...
There are always people more skilled and more talented than you. And there are always people less skilled and less talented. And you need to learn how to teach the less talented and how to learn from the more talented. And that's one of the things scouting offers.
And to have a boss who's 20 years older than you or 20 years younger than you. That can happen too. But Montessori does that. They're good with having the mixed age groups where under supervision the older can teach the younger. Any other specific stories about students learning that you can recall right now in the patrol method, or how the patrol method helped them in a way that nothing else has that you're aware of, or any growth you've seen in the kids?
Oh, I mean, there's always the. It seems every time we go to summer camp, we find one or two boys who get homesick, and if we can just persuade them to stick it out, they end up actually enjoying the experience and being glad that they came and glad that they didn't bail and have mom and dad drive to camp and pick them up.
Cool.
And just seeing that kind of personal growth in the boys is very rewarding. One of the things that's nice about Boy Scouts is our troop has this as a very firm policy. I'm not sure how uniformly applied it is elsewhere, but we try very hard to avoid having the adults work with their own children, because of there's a potential for nepotism, but it's really more a matter of giving the boys the opportunity to have to work as junior members of the team and have to approach other adults to get stuff done.
Cool.
Excuse me, sir, would you sign this off for me? And would you approve my Scoutmaster conference for this rank? I need to do this merit badge. Can you help me? I have to satisfy this requirement on that merit badge. Can you run through what I did and confirm that I've met the requirements? It really gives them the opportunity to start learning how to work in an adult world and interact with other adults, so that At school, the problem is they only interact with their peers and with maybe one teacher. In the Scout group, they have to interact with all of the other adult leaders in different aspects of the merit badges or other responsibilities. And I think that's a good growth opportunity.
Yeah. And then for some who might not know, could you spell the word nepotism and say what it means?
Oh, that's just a nepotism. A spelling bee? You're going to give me a spelling bee? Nepotism would be Nepotism. Nepotism. That's just showing favoritism toward your relatives.
And it's something that some people will learn in history, social studies, in regard to some governments, some positions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that'll come up sometimes sometimes in the military, someone being selected, even though they don't have the qualifications, it'd be a matter of nepotism. Someone's chosen just because they're a relative, and they should not be in that position because they're not qualified for that rank in the military.
Right.
Yeah. But, cool. So people could do some of that stuff with homeschooling too. Some of the schools would take more systematic change, and they'd be very resistant to that. A lot of inertia.
Scouting does have a program they call a Lone Scout program that you could pursue in a homeschooling curriculum.
But I mean that too. But I mean like someone in a homeschool, some parents working together with their kids could use some of this with their kids. That's what I meant. But
it'd be great. It would be great for a homeschool collective or co-op where you've got children from a variety of families coming together in a group of half dozen to a dozen or so, forming a scout troop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it could be
or a scout patrol rather.
Yeah, you can just call it Scout in general, generic, or make up your own name. Follow the same principles. Call it what you want. Boys, girls, different ages can still be involved doing nature study. You can, the stuff's on the internet. People can look up their merit badges, see what their requirements are, adapt it the way they want. Like a homeschool group, a parent could adapt it the way they want. Or a parent doing something with their kids or a group of parents outside of school. It doesn't have to be part of the Scouts. Officially, the stuff's up there. You can look at the ranks, the merit badges, get your kids involved in doing that. Have them, as part of it, part of the leadership thing, have them reach out and write to an expert in the area, a local expert in tracking, birding, fitness, or whatever. Look up people, assess them, look up 5 people, go interview them all, see which one you're going to use. Then they're learning these as well. And then they can decide on one, and then maybe the group uses that fitness person or tracker to help them learn something. There's a lot of things like that they could do to apply these principles in different ways for their children.
And there are a lot of other scouting-like organizations that use very similar principles, like Trail Life USA is one that for people who don't want to be involved in Scouts, BSA, and some of the political aspects that they've been getting themselves into. There are any number of other organizations that operate under similar provisions.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, one thing I wanted to make sure I got in was, I am a Scout leader, but I am speaking on my own behalf with my own opinions, which are not necessarily those of Scouts, BSA, or my council or district or troop. So they're my opinions alone.
Right. So maybe we should put like a disclaimer at the beginning, like a medical disclaimer or something. Or some of them on some shows. The guest opinions do not. The guest opinions do not represent those of Scouting USA, the President of the United States, this podcast, or your local school district.
Yeah.
But, cool. Any other ideas about the patrol method or principles about scouting or Montessori connections you need to make, or do you need to like spend like hour 10 you need to run, get some other stuff done?
I do have to be getting back to my family.
Sweet.
And some other
Good.
projects this evening, but it's been a great opportunity getting to speak with you.
Yeah,
again.
likewise. Yeah.
I'm busy at work. The first half of my physics book is now off in the reviewers, in the beta readers' hands,
Sweet.
and the
Good.
second half will be hopefully a few more months. It's taken way longer than I thought, but when I have that done, I'll be looking forward to coming back and talking with you about it.
Sweet. Yeah, likewise. Sweet. I like the beard. It's nice.
Oh, I figured, being quarantined for the plague, I had to kind of act and look the part.
That's what my brother's doing. My brother had a beard, and then he cut it off. But then he found out the company says they're not going back until like September, so he started growing it again. I'm hoping he does like the ZZ Top thing.
That would take a while to do.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my growth rate, and it's going to be a decade before I have a really respectable beard. I should have started sooner.
I'll have to work on that. But first thing, I'm like, and when I get it, I'll show you. I'm like doing a hair thing, COVID quarantine hair style thing that you'll know about when it grows long enough and all that. But I'll see how long I do that. Then maybe I'll try the beard thing too. But one thing at a time. Plus the two wouldn't mix. With what I'm doing, I can't do both. I couldn't do a beard and this, so. Yeah. But, cool. Any last words for folks before we stop?
Oh, well, just scouting has been a great and worthwhile experience for me and my family, and a good way to get some outdoor experience in a structured format that's hard to get any other way. So I recommend it.
Yeah, I think now that you mentioned some of that, looking back, I think those are some things I get out of it. Working with other people my age, getting things accomplished, getting goals done, working with adults. If I wasn't such a doofus when I was young, I would have gotten more out of it. But being kind of a doofus, didn't get as much out of it as I could. But I can see some of that now, looking back. And so people know. I mean, some people have heard about it, but just as a reminder, what the Eagle Scouts, aren't there like some of the astronauts were Eagle Scouts and maybe some Navy SEALs and people like that?
Yeah, it's a great youth training. There are scholarships available for Eagle Scouts. I understand that if you are enlisted, it's usually at least like a full rank promotion once you finish boot camp. If you're an Eagle Scout.
Wow.
So there are a lot of life advantages to being part of the Eagle Scout fraternity.
Cool. But those are some things I was thinking about mentioning earlier. I just forgot. Don't want to prolong the conversation since you need to go. I just wanted to mention that really quickly. So I mentioned it. We're done. Okay. Thank you, Hans. Appreciate the discussion about the patrol method, how it can help people. Really valuable thing. But thanks, and hope you have a good day. Enjoy the time with your family, and look forward to talking with you again.
Will do. Always a pleasure, Michael, and I'll look forward to continuing the conversation on a different topic some other time.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you for listening, folks. Again, if you'd like the podcast and the episode, maybe think about donating, helping out, spreading this to teachers, parents, principals, schools. Help improve our culture, help improve your life, help improve that of your children or students, help local community, help our culture in general. I'd appreciate it. So thanks for listening, and stay safe and stay healthy and be a good rational animal.